Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We've all got stuff in our lives. We've all got clutter in our lives. And I mean that in terms of objects, but also emotions, all of that. She is a professional organizer that doesn't just clean your house and organize it. She helps organize your life because there is a very strong, deep connection with that. We're going to talk about when you should call that type of organizer, some of the myths involved with all of this. When you should call one is not when they've signed you up for an episode of Hoarders. That's not what we're talking about. There's other things going on with us being cluttered. Emily Guderian joins us today from Built to be Visible Pro Organizing. Welcome back. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yeah, we learned a lot last time about the connection between those of us who are a little more cluttered and how that's really a symptom of stuff going on in our lives. I've shared that with others since we got together, and they didn't buck it. They were like, yeah, it actually started a dialogue of what's going on in their lives. When do you know it's time to call somebody like you?
Usually, if you're triggered, actually, if emotions, overwhelm, anger, frustration, panic, if the emotions connected to your space are starting to be, they're starting to like hook you, they're starting to aggravate you, maybe even get in the way of you doing other things, that's when it's time to start taking a look at whether or not you need help.
Hmm. Can you give an example?
Sure. So I have a client who was not really tracking it, but there was a pathway from her kitchen to another part of the house, kind of like a butler's pantry. And the pathway kept getting smaller and smaller. She kept tripping on it. She kept, hurting herself on it. It would impede, two people weren't going to make that movement together. It had to be one at a time. And it had happened so slowly that she wasn't tracking it until she really, banged herself pretty good. And at that point, it's like, oh, wait, I've got a little bit of a situation. Usually these things, they come in and they come in slowly. And so it's hard to kind of be aware of how much they do affect you in the day to day. But
I
people have a hard time calling an organizer. I mean, I've noticed that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think a part of it is because you're admitting, in a way, defeat. Like, I'm a
Yes.
mess. I need help. But
See,
no,
Steve gets it. Yeah, for sure.
we're all good nowadays going to a therapist. Even saying, I can't talk to you now. I have a session with my therapist. 15 years ago, you wouldn't tell people because they would think you're all a little out there. But no, it's like a
Right.
badge of honor. You, I believe, do a lot of the same. And there's the more and more I think of it, there is that major correlation between the clutter. I'm going to give an example of somebody I know,
Yeah.
and the perception is he's got his stuff together. He's well known. I'll just say that. I never went to where he lives. I went there to
Mhm.
drop off something, help him with some technical stuff. I'm a kind of a geek, so I'm like, yeah, I'll help you out with that. OMG. I can't even begin. And
Yeah.
a mutual
There's a
friend,
lot of these folks out there.
he dropped a hint that I forgot about, just saying, like, it's a mess when you get there. I forgot he even said that. I'm like, how bad could it be? Come on. And the more
Yeah.
and more, the more and more I um, go deeper in talking with him in situations and just now I'm not looking for it. I'm looking at it from a different angle. I'm like, yeah, he's got some challenges going on there.
Yeah.
We're afraid to admit a lot of this kind of stuff.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
but the connection between the clutter, it's right there. And that's one of many, that I've encountered. So, and even talking to people that will admit, just when we had that conversation last week, I shared it with
Yeah.
somebody, I got a few people, and they freely admit it. Yeah, that is a symptom. I got a lot going on, and they went into a little bit of detail about it. Is there ever a time where we're just cluttered, we're just messy? I'm messy. I'm not, but is that possible?
It's possible. In fact, it happens a lot. And just because there's a phase that happens of clutter or whatever, it's not indicative that that's where you're stuck. And the truth is we all get stuck, I guess, from time to time. So I do this for a living. I do this for other people. I think I'm good at what I do, but I'll tell you, I got some spots in my own house that, they need a little help. And that's just where I am right now. I know the emotion connected to it actually, and it's just the thing that I'm not quite ready to deal with. So I'm able to kind of set that aside. And there's other highly functioning areas of my house, but there's one that is just painful for me right now. So I'll deal with it in time. But just because there's like one area doesn't mean that there's a label that needs to be attached to you. I think that's just human nature. We all have periods of highs, lows. I mean, that's just life. So a low point, a period or a time of clutter or a space, a single space in the house that's kind of overwhelmed, that just seems to be life. That just seems to be real people. What
Hmm.
I think, and you had kind of touched on it, is this stigma about needing an organizer. There's just this thing out there. There's pervasive idea that you were born and therefore you know how to manage all of your stuff. You're born knowing when, maybe, but what's really interesting is I had something going on in the house. I had a leak, not anything that I could handle on my own. I called a plumber and I didn't even think twice about it. I didn't berate myself because I had to call a plumber. I just called the plumber. He did his magic. Thank goodness he did it. And then he left. And so organizers are kind of in that space where you've got a neutral third party, somebody who could come in, see the problem, be able to remedy it for you, and then what that creates for you on the back end after that organizer leaves. It's kind of cool, especially when you're talking about the emotion. That's an even different, a more expansive repair, if you will.
Sure. But these are professionals that are trained, whether it's a
Yeah,
professional organizer or a plumber, and you're very different. And I've talked to professional organizers before, and they're great people, helping you
for
clean the
sure.
clutter. But you take it from a different standpoint, looking at it, why it's happening. You're getting to the root cause of what's going on there.
Right.
Uh, would you say most times there is a connection why somebody isn't neat and a little, more orderly? Is there, it's connected to something somehow, different degrees,
For
obviously.
sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you talked about your friend and your surprise at what was going on in the physical space. There are a lot of these folks, and the more I see them, the more I meet them, the more compassion I have for these people. These are people that are just like so deeply wounded. I have a client that, and I shared this before. I have a client that I'm helping right now, and in the community, she's a force. She's helping, she's serving, she's looking out for other people, she's taking care of people that need it. And you
Wow.
would she fronts beautifully. She is a presence in the community. And then on the backside of it, her home is having a hard time. There is just a lot of stuff going on to the point where it's just starting to, shut her down. And we start exploring the root of this, and it's usually not what people think. And as we got into it, the root of all of this clutter in her house is this huge lack of self-worth. This idea, this core belief that she has, that she picked up probably in childhood, but
Mm.
this core belief that she has no value and therefore the things around her have no value, which is why she doesn't, really invest any effort or energy into taking care of them. And so as we kind of release this core belief, which is a lie, but as we release that belief that she doesn't have value and start to instill and fill up that negative space with positive things, I'm kind of actually really looking forward to seeing how that shifts for her. But you would never believe that clutter was connected to a belief that I have no value in it, and yet it was.
Yeah, especially because a lot of these people, the guy I know
They
included, we think that they got their blank together for the most
Right.
part.
They front beautifully in the communities. You would never know. This is one of those
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got the shame and guilt. Like we talk about the emotions that show up, and honestly, the one that shows up more often than any other emotion is shame and guilt. And shame is one of those emotions that the only purpose of shame is to shut you down from accomplishing your purpose, shut you down from sharing your gifts, shut you down from productivity and joy, for
Yeah.
sure, joy. And that is the thing that shows up the most often is shame and guilt. And the guilt is usually over money, having spent the money, having judgments, negative judgments about the way the money was spent, having guilt about not, using something up, to commensurate with its cost, its original cost, guilt about having accumulated so much, guilt about not using things that you've accumulated. Guilt and shame,
Mm.
it will shut down people, and
Isn't it
it's there.
isn't it true that
Yeah.
the number one belief that we all have, and I'm going to say we all have it in some form,
Yeah.
is that we're not good enough. We're not good enough. And that manifests in many different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we all battle that, whether we're willing to admit it or not. I agree with you. I think that seems to be a universal thing. And then the flip side of we're not good enough is just arrogance, that pride, like I'm better than. But what I have found is, whatever you have, there's a front side, then a back side of an emotion. So where you have, I'm not good enough, the backside of that is arrogance and pride. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I can see that because you might cover up for I'm not good enough by showing that arrogance. Like,
Right.
look at the ego on that one. Wow.
Yeah.
It's just a fun.
Yeah. And at the core, it's just very, very low self-worth. But
Mm,
I think we all battle with that. I'm one of those, battled with that a
yeah.
lot. Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. In all phases of my life. I think finally I'm reaching that point where I'm like, I've got other stuff to worry about, not that. I've got plenty of other negative emotions behind that, but I finally have been able to see that for the lie that it is.
Well, thank you for being transparent about that. And I wonder, was clutter a bigger challenge in your life in the past because of some of the stuff that you're going through, which we all go through?
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
And then, I'll take it one step further. I think that hyper organizing is, again, that same coin. We talked about a front side and a back side, where you've got clutter on one side, you've got hyper organizing on another side.
Okay.
So it could very well be that, this real obsessive stuff about organizing is a trauma response as well.
Oh,
Trying to create order in where you feel powerless.
and I would admit to that one then. For
Yeah,
sure. When I was younger, it's everything had to be just right in its right spot. Not like an OCD thing, but just that was my way of maybe overcompensating for the feelings of not good enough. Well, yeah, because we all want something to run with, like the ball down the field. This is my ball. I'm running with it. I'm a superstar going down the field. Well, look at him. He's like almost obsessed with being like organized and perfect. And again, it's a cover up. It's
for sure.
I'm sure there's a lot of people doing that on both sides. What about the myths? When we call an organizer, what are some of the things that people may be thinking that really aren't true?
Well, I read the blogs. I kind of dabble in that. Have you heard of Marie Kondo?
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, so yeah, this may date me, I guess, but she is this sweet little Japanese lady. She wrote a book about the magic of tidying up. If you've heard of, do these things spark joy? If you've heard of that, then
Mm.
that's Marie Kondo. And I read her book about organizing, and I don't like it. And some of the things that she had to say, I've seen in other blogs. And one of these myths out there is that, you just do it all at once. You've got a space, you just go after it once, and once you take care of it, you don't really need to deal with it again. And I'm looking at that as a lie. That's a lie. Because, I mean, really, what in the physical world only gets dealt with once? I mean, it's bathing. Do you bathe once and, knock that out and you're good? Or, I went to the doctor once and so I never have to go again. Or I took a vitamin once and, thank you, I've got health and I never have to worry about that again.
Because we are part of an evolution. We are
Right.
always, mankind is an evolution. We in ourselves, we're always evolving. Are you the same way you were 5 years ago?
No,
Hell no
no,
here. Like it, and sometimes
no.
that's a good thing. Sometimes maybe that's not a good thing. All depends. Everybody's different, right? But
Right.
we want to look at it as evolving to a better you, better moving forward, call it that.
Right.
Yeah. The one and
And
done
the
is
truth
just
is,
ridiculous.
we all want to like hit that threshold. Like I've made it and I never have to worry about anything ever again. But there is no threshold. There is no finish
There
line.
is no,
Life is an evolution. You got it. So
there is
I'm going
none.
to bust up that myth. You do have to attend to it more than once. We call it maintenance. But yeah, to think that you can just invest a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, get it done, and it's done, that's a setup. That's kind of a setup for failure. So sorry, Marie Kondo, you are adorable, but that's not true.
And to your point, um, I've got a friend who has a friend, and that friend, well off, penthouse in New York City, overlooks Central Park. He had a bag. He did very well for himself. Fantastic. He retired. My friend paid him a visit, just checking in. Hey, how's it going? I was in the city. I figured to stop by. The gentleman was balled up in the fetal position in the corner of his penthouse
Oh,
because he didn't know how to retire. Now his life has changed. So to your point, like we think we make it big and we are done. No, you're not,
mm-mm.
because that was him.
No.
And then now he looked at retirement. He doesn't have a purpose. He's not worried. I don't know what to do. How do I do this? I don't know what to do. So he's getting therapy, but that's how he was found. And all that
Yeah,
money, everything, what does it mean? Nothing at that point. He's a
right.
mess. He's a mess.
And that was actually like a slow death of a kind, to have your purpose, to have the thing that brings you joy, that lights you up, to have that be, taken away, not because, you of a loss, but rather you hit this mark and now you need to do something else. Yeah, I kind of I look at retirement differently. I mean, I'm a middle-aged woman. I'm starting a business. Like my peers they're looking to retire, and I'm looking to grow this business into something, who knows what it'll be. But I think the moment that you retire, it almost is like a slow death, unless you like have something else that you involve yourself in, and that goes to the whole evolution thing. That I think you're spot on with that for sure.
And the purpose, what your purpose is. And when people
Right.
say, and I don't begrudge anybody who has retired, maybe a teacher, law enforcement, whatever, they
No.
have the
Yeah.
opportunity. Many of them are doing something else now because they have the opportunity to do it. But when I hear the word retire, my friend and I, my best friend, we're the same age. He's actually a year older. But whenever that comes up, retire,
No.
I won't even tell you how old I am, but he's picking up bodies as an EMT, even at his age. And he's
No
still,
kidding.
yeah, it's like, like we don't even know what that word means. I can't. It just doesn't, it's not A, not practical. B, can't even see it happening. But yeah. Is it
Yeah.
possible that people are cluttered? See, in my mind, I'm trying to get around it always ties back to an emotional situation. There's a reason for the
Right.
clutter. Emotional connection. Is it possible that people are messy because they just don't have time? I don't have time to clean. I don't have time. Or is that just another excuse?
I think it's an excuse. I hear it
Okay.
a lot.
Okay.
And it kind of like it takes the pressure off. That's what excuses do, right? It
Mm,
makes you so you don't have to look any deeper. And the reason we don't want to look any deeper is because usually there's a little bit of pain involved in that, and we are just hardwired to be pain averse. So I think it's an excuse. I think at some level people know how to manage their stuff.
uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
when you're not managing your stuff or your stuff is managing you, and the exchange between you, the person, and the things is not a profitable, productive, or pleasant exchange, that's when something's off. But everybody there, and that whole thing of managing your things, there's some room to move. Like some people manage their things down to, everything has to be straight and not crooked, and then other people manage your things in zones. Well, that I know that pile, I know that pile, and
Mm,
it works for them. So there's some room in this description of managing your things. Like there's not just one way to manage your things, but I
mm.
speak to the elements that kind of throw off the balance, if you will. And
I,
I
s-
think
I
I'm
see that.
messy is an excuse.
Ah, and
Sorry,
how many,
not sorry.
sorry, not sorry. I think a lot of times we don't see how good it can look and feel to be organized because we're so deep into it. And like my example, I'm getting visuals as we're talking in my bedroom, which is my favorite room in my place. I just the way it looks, the light, it just feels good. But when I pile a couple of clothes up on the dresser, or sometimes somebody actually made fun of me that I'll take my jeans and on my dresser, hey, I have the knobs for the drawers and everything.
Yeah.
I'll hang them from the belt loop
Hey,
there
that's
down.
efficient.
And it's like if I rotate two jeans or whatever, and they're like, it looks like the gap that you're walking in. But you know what? When it's clean, when I've cleaned everything, actually made the bed, doesn't happen often. It's what a feeling of power at the same time of just togetherness. Like I got my blank together today because I just cleaned
Right.
it. I feel that we don't realize how good it can be. You feel that way?
Well, but there's spillover effect, right? So you feel like a bad A having made the bed, and that intimate bedroom space looks good. So where does it stop? I mean, it spills over into the way you carry
That's what I'm saying.
yourself,
Yeah.
the way you deal with, the other humans that you encounter, whether it's work or in your commute or in the store. The spillover effect is huge. And what's really interesting is the disorganization is kind of like a cataract for a lot of people. It just slowly changes and degrades over time so slowly that you're not really tracking how much
Yes.
you've really lost. So that when somebody like me comes in, and then like somebody like me actually deals with whatever that root cause for the cataract was, the result is absolutely transformational for people because
Mm.
of this spillover, because they are changed from the inside and the outside. It's a total clean slate transformation kind of
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And I've
Oh,
watched that in
powerful.
clients.
Powerful. Um, we're out of time. I want to ask this question. Then
So
I want to
fast.
find
It
out how
goes
we,
so fast with
I
you,
know,
Steve.
right? Um, do you have a background in coaching, psychology? Where does this come from?
Coaching, but sports, not psychology. I think a lot of what I understand has come from my training in the energy work, in muscle testing, just being able
Okay.
to look at something differently. And
Gotcha.
then I've got the whole nerd side, the organizational, the engineering. There's the whole creation of systems in that engineering. So I have a lot of different things I do, but I coach
No, I get it.
basketball.
And
I
well,
love that.
you know what it is? It's the energy, the connection to the energy, which we talked about a few episodes back, where if your energy is off, if you're cluttered, your energy is going to be off.
Yeah.
But then also from the engineering side of things. I think that's the logical decluttering version of
That's
you.
the systems, right?
That's
for sure.
the systems. Yeah. I love systems.
Yeah, me too.
How do we connect with you? How do we find you?
You can find me on social media. My handle, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is at Built to Be Visible. I have a website. It's builttobevisible.com. And you can always reach me via phone. It's area code 480-221-8874.
Yeah. Time to build a new life. And it's interesting. You're building a new life by taking apart your old one in terms of your clutter. When you look at it,
deconstruction in order for
Deconstruction.
construction.
Yeah. Emily, great talking with you.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. We'll catch up next time. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.